Hi, everybody. Welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. Today, I'm talking to Holly Matthews because she was in Lahaina when all this craziness happened. And the last I checked, I have some news articles that I looked at that are like a couple hours old. It looks like the death toll is currently at 115, and that there's still, according to their numbers, there's still about 1,100 that are missing. I came across an article that explained that that doesn't necessarily mean that all of them are going to be among the dead, that there's different reasons why there's that number, including, I don't know how they came to this number, but including homeless people as well as tourists. So they must, I don't know, have some idea of how many people were in the city when it happened, but 1,100 missing. And so one of my subscribers, Devin Southam, recommended that I talk to Holly because she was there when it happened. So, Holly, you're not originally from Lahaina, right?
Correct. Right. I'm originally grew up in northern Utah and a little bit in the state of Washington.
Okay. And where are you now?
Right now I'm in Bluffdale, Utah, so a little bit south of Salt Lake City.
Yeah, I'm familiar with Bluffdale. And so you were just there on vacation?
That's right, we were.
How long was your vacation going to be for? Did it get, I'm assuming that it got cut short.
Um, Sort of. We were supposed to be in Maui for a week. We flew in to the airport there on Tuesday night. So kind of right when everything was coming to a head with the fires. So we landed at about 8 p.m. local time there. And, nobody really knew before we got there. When we had a connecting flight in LAX, they didn't really know in LA that this was a big problem, 5 hours earlier. So we were supposed to be there for a week, from Tuesday the 8th to Tuesday the 15th.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually did end up continuing our trip over on Oahu a couple days later.
Okay. Yeah, because I mean, as far as Lahaina goes, the city itself, like that was very, very fast. There was like essentially no warning for
Right,
that. So it makes sense that they really wouldn't have known. There were the fires going on before it hit
right.
Lahaina. But anyway, but how did you experience it? Because you came in contact with the people that were directly affected by that because they were residents of Lahaina. So what happened there?
Right. Yeah, we landed, as I mentioned, at 8 in the evening. The Lahaina had not burned down at that point in time, but it was known that these fires were becoming a bigger problem. The hurricane winds that were from a hurricane about 100 miles south of Hawaii were really causing some high winds on the islands, 50 to 65-mile-an-hour winds, which sounds kind of gusty, but the problem was, Maui has been in a drought. It was really dry. I've never seen Hawaii that dry. We drove around a little bit as we were trying to find a place to stay that evening, and as we were kind of trying to figure out what to do the next couple of days, and it was so brown. So some smaller brush fires kind of turned into a bigger problem. Um, and at that time in the evening, we drove over to get our rental car, and the agent told us, if you're trying to get to Lahaina, you can't because the highways are blocked. And we sort of looked at each other like, what's going on? And she said, well, there's some local fires, and this is normal. We have fires occasionally, and it's the dry season, and the road will probably be opened in a couple of hours. So, that
And
was
for all
about
intents and
9.
purposes, that's when you like first heard of any sort of problem with fires.
Yeah, I mean, when we were landing, the pilot mentioned there's been a couple of local fires. It's a little bit smoky tonight. That's really all he said. And so, of course, we didn't really know that it was a problem. Even the agent that helped us with our rental car did not know that it was this big of a problem. So, even the north and eastern side of the island just didn't know it was a big problem until a couple of hours later. They knew that the highways were blocked into Lahaina. So for us, we had some choices to make. It was 9 p.m., which time adjusted felt like 1 a.m. to us. So
Mm-hmm.
we were pretty tired, and we just decided to find a hotel. you know, on the east or north side of the island. And so I started to call, we pulled over into a parking lot. I started to call hotels, and then we quickly realized kind of what a dire situation, at least we were in, not knowing where to go, because there was no vacancy anywhere.
Oh
Everything
no.
was completely full. And that's when we
And
started
who all did you have with
realizing,
you? You and your husband, and then did you have kids with you?
yeah, good point. We had my husband and I and our 3 children, 18, 15, and 11. So they're a little bit older. They did pretty good. Um, Pretty proud of how they handled it. But yeah,
Yeah.
it was rough. We were tired, you know, and so we started, everyone in the car started calling all of the hotels. We probably called 50 hotels. There was not one place to stay. Um, we looked at the Maui County website. They mentioned that we could go shelter at the high school. So we did try the high school at about midnight. And I have to say, it felt super unsafe. Um, you know, it was a lot of people, and that wasn't the problem. I think that, I don't know. I don't know if locals, even still on that side of the island, didn't really know it was that big of a deal, because the people that were sheltering that night were partly um, tourists that had left their hotels in Lahaina earlier
Mhm.
in the day to go and adventure and go to the beach and, you know, go on the road to Hana, and they couldn't get back. So it was partly a lot of displaced tourists, and then as the night progressed, more locals that were being evacuated from Lahaina and more tourists that were being evacuated from Lahaina started joining all of these different shelter spots. So when we got to the high school, it did not feel safe. People were kind of partying and tailgating and getting drunk in the parking lot. And I have to admit, I didn't have my best moment. I was really tired, so I just said, "I'm staying here in the car. I'm not going in." My husband said, "I'll go check it out." All of my kids were like, "We need to go to the bathroom." So those four went in, and this is so sweet. They actually told me that they said a prayer, a family prayer, inside the high school. They just kind of found a quiet corner and said, "Should we stay here or should we go?" And they all felt like they shouldn't stay there.
At the high
Meanwhile,
school.
at the high school, meanwhile, I'm sitting in the car and I'm going, "Everybody's partying in this parking lot. We shouldn't stay here." So they got back in, and all of us said, "We need to leave." So we had actually started the night at a police station. My husband's a police officer, and he went, you know, "That's where it's safe. Let's go to the police station." And we sat in the police station parking lot for a couple of hours before we went to the high school. So we just decided to go back to the police station and try to get a little bit of sleep there.
Mm.
we we didn't have a big car, so my older daughter and I got out on the grass and tried to sleep on the grass a little bit while we let the other three stretch out. And we were there until about 3:30 a.m. At that point, we discovered that there were a few more shelter locations. And also we had been keeping up on the news, so we started hearing, like, Lahaina is burnt down, you know, at this point in the middle of the night.
Gosh.
And
Yeah.
we really realized how dire the situation was. I mean, not just for us, and this is not about our vacation was ruined. This my experience, our experience actually is really tender to us. We feel like it's more about um, never in my life have I felt displaced. You know, if I haven't had a place to stay or if I've been in between apartments or houses, you go stay with a friend, you go stay with family members. This is the first time I've ever experienced, and my husband and my children, of course, not having anywhere to go, really not knowing where to go. And we were blessed. You know, we had a car, so we had safety. We tried a church early in the evening. They didn't really know what was going on, and it was it was a young single adults ward that was having an activity, and they kind of said, "Oh, good luck," which we laugh about now because
Yeah.
I just don't.
Little
I
did
mean,
they know there was no
yeah,
luck to be had.
no, no, and I just really think that the locals on that side of the island at that time and earlier in the evening, just no one really knew that it was going to be this big of a deal.
Well, I mean,
Um,
because like at nighttime, that's at night, that's when you had the people that had to jump into the water to escape
yes,
the flames. So it's like that's how fast it was.
yes,
And
so fast.
I can not well, I can only in the smallest degree relate to you, and then obviously the people that were displaced. Recently, our air conditioner broke. We had to call a
Oh,
technician, and we,
yeah.
for a part of the day, we couldn't even stay in the house because it was so hot. And just that little inconvenience was very
Yeah.
uncomfortable, not having a place to go. So
Yeah.
even worse than that would be to be out of state, especially a place like Hawaii where it's like so isolated
Yeah.
and nowhere to go. But then even worse
Where to
than that,
go.
if you have your house burned down and there's like, I really empathize with all the people that are dealing with this right
Yeah.
now. I don't know what I would do in this situation, but
Yeah. It,
anyway.
yeah, I mean, completely agreed. We talked to a lot of people who lost everything. And, I'll tell you a little bit about that. It was very humbling. It was so sad. Um, it also made me realize that we're all just brothers and sisters, you know. We did end up staying at an LDS church for part of that first night and then the next night. And, the interesting thing is you didn't know who there was religious and who wasn't, but it also didn't matter. And I think that that really showed me, we were just, you just called everyone brother and sister because you don't know their names. You don't know where they sit spiritually, but it doesn't matter because we're all brothers and sisters. We're all children of God. And, that next morning I was not feeling well. I was actually pretty sick on Wednesday morning and trying to get a prescription from home, have a doctor send a prescription over to a local pharmacy. And they said, "Oh, just go to a clinic." And I said, "I don't think you realize what's happening here. The clinics are full and there's nowhere to go." And anyway, I walked into the restroom and there were a bunch of women in there brushing teeth and washing faces. And I said to a woman, you know, "Are you okay?" Because she didn't look okay. And she said, "I think so." And I said, "Can I get you anything? Do you need anything? I'll go find someone who's serving here to get you something." And she said, "No, I got a toothbrush and I got some soap." And I said, "Did you lose your house?" And she said, "Yeah, it's gone." And I just hugged her and we just cried together because we know it's just stuff, but for some of these people, it's everything. It's not just stuff. It's a historical place that their families have lived for generations. So, it was very humbling. We felt very blessed. My youngest, my 11-year-old, she's so cute. As soon as we got to the church, at like 4:30 a.m., and they didn't have a lot of stuff yet. They had some water and they had a little bit of snacks, and they didn't have very much bedding yet, but um, they gave us some little pillows, maybe just some decorative pillows from someone's couch. And they showed us into a classroom, and she laid down on this decorative pillow and she said, "We're so blessed."
That's
And
cute.
I thought, you know what? She taught me a lot that night too, because I thought, what are you talking about? This is terrible. But, it was a really good experience. Of course. Do I wish that that happened to those people? No. But, God works in mysterious ways and he
Yeah.
teaches us what we need to learn, you know?
This whole thing, it's kind of like when you were talking about how you kind of like you obviously knew before, you cognitively knew that we're all brothers and sisters, but
Right.
when you're in this like situation where it's like this great equalizer where
Right.
uh
No one has anything.
yeah, nobody has anything, no one
Yeah.
has power or control. It's like one of these things that are bigger than us,
Right.
this disaster. It kind of shows you the limits of our life, like because a lot of
Right.
times we kind of like float along in life feeling like we have control. We're trying to like act out our
Right.
desires, our will, our plans, and stuff like that. But then it's like a big reminder that there's like things that are so much bigger and more powerful than you. And like you said, it showed you just how much you have in common with everybody else, like all of our brothers and
Yeah.
sisters. So it's like, it's almost like other times, like, recently I went to a funeral and a lot of people have like the same type of feelings. You go to a funeral, it's another time when you come across this like limit or this boundary in life, and you're reminded like, oh yeah, life ends, like it doesn't go on forever,
Yeah.
and this is kind of just a game that we're playing. But it's not a game, but yeah,
Right.
it's uh, obviously a lot of people, their lives are going to be affected profoundly, both
Right.
temporally and spiritually, and hopefully in the spiritual sense for the well, even maybe in the temporal sense, I don't know, maybe there's some people that'll end up better out of coming out of this. But anyway, that's really impressive with your daughter in just like your children's spirituality. Like, have they had it, have they talked to you any more about this, like how they felt
Yeah.
afterwards or anything like that?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because we were there at this church for like 2 days, and um and everyone just kind of talked to everyone because you're all sort of in the same boat. I mean, we didn't lose a home or businesses or even family members, but we were all displaced. It was this great equalizing moment, and so we talked to everyone. And there were people serving there, that were part of the stake and the church in that area. There were missionaries. There were young missionaries. There were couple missionaries that were older, and there were a lot of locals that lived on the north and the east side there that were helping. And we just talked to everyone, even my kids. I would see my kids sitting at a round table in this church gym just with some person, and we didn't feel like strangers. And I think that's God's hand in our life showing us that you're right, he's in control. And this
Mm.
feels like a terrible thing. And of course, it is tragic. But at the same time, when we left that situation, we really felt grateful to have experienced it because, first and foremost, most people are good. There's so much good out there. The brothers and the sisters that served us, that were there morning to night, I saw some of the same people there from the moment I woke up to the moment I went to sleep, and I thought, gosh, I wonder how much sleep they're getting. um, the goodness of those people, the goodness of people that we talked to that lost everything. And, I would hug them and say, I'm so sorry. And they'd say, it's okay. It's going to be okay. The faith of people in better days, better times. There was a lot of faith in God there. You could sense it. I don't think that there were very many people there that were Latter-day Saints. And that was amazing. Um, my
What
children, they
sorry to,
definitely have talked about it. Yeah, go ahead.
well, I was going to ask, what organizations did you see operating there? Like,
Mhm.
um for example, did you see any National Guardsmen there, Red
No,
Cross or church,
nope.
any, like what did you see?
No, no, it was all, local volunteers from the LDS church there. It
Oh,
was being organized by the stake presidency and the Stake Relief Society presidency, and they were doing an outstanding job. Now, we left after 2 days, 2 nights, so, there may have been more organized, Red Cross and FEMA coming in and making sure that this shelter had everything it needed. We did hear the stake president say at one point, because I was kind of eavesdropping, I saw the stake president and a couple of people, volunteers, sort of circled together by the food tables, and they were saying, uh, "Tell the members to stop bringing stuff. Like, we have all the stuff we need right now, and the church will provide anything else that's needed: food, water, medicine, toiletries." So all of the stuff that we saw when we were there was all donated from locals, and the abundance is crazy. Jared, I'll send you some pictures,
okay.
if you want to post them with this episode. I mean, the amount of stuff that was there, it was like we were feasting with kings every single meal. It was
Wow.
amazing. Yeah.
With like sleeping arrangements, were there like cots, or like what kind of
Yeah.
things were brought in for people to sleep on?
Yeah.
Mattresses?
Yeah, there was, so again, that first night, not much because really it's just sort of happened in the middle of the night and no one knew. When we started kind of stirring the next morning, my husband and my son went to hunt for a little bit more bedding. And they came back with some more pillows and blankets, but by that evening, there were air mattresses and cots and, sleeping bags and bedrolls. There was so much stuff, and we slept really comfortably. We felt like we were in a five-star hotel the second night compared to the first night. It was pretty awesome. I do know though that we were some of the first people there. So when we checked in at the church, there were only about 60 people, 60 evacuees there. Um, by the next morning, we had heard there were about 200, and then by that following evening, there were about 350. And I'm sure there were more when we left. We knew we needed to make way, but it was actually hard to leave. We formed this kind of strange little bond with all these people, and we knew a lot of people's stories, and we sort of felt like maybe we could help here. But at the same time, we also knew we needed to get out of the way so that there were 5 more sleeping places for other people. Especially, you kind of got to get all of the tourists out like as you can, so
Yeah.
that you can then focus on the locals. So, yeah.
What was the overall feeling? I mean, you mentioned the one lady with like in the bathroom, and
Mhm.
what about like everybody else that seemed to have been like affected as far as like their house burning down? Like, were
Yeah.
people like real? Was it like really solemn and somber, or was it like were
No.
people like
No,
managing okay?
I mean, Hawaiian culture and Hawaiian people are amazing. They're beautiful people. They have a really strong sense of spirituality, of ohana, of family, of connection to the land. And of course, I am certain they were going through really hard things, but I swear every meal was like a luau. It was like a big party. There was music, there was singing, there was lots of eating, there was a lot of conversations and laughter. Certainly, you talked to a couple of people, on the side, and you could tell people were worried, people were hurting, but they were really doing their best to make the best out of the situation. There were a lot of kids in the church. The local volunteers brought in puzzles and games, and they set up a projector with movies over in the corner of the cultural hall, and people were really trying to keep spirits up, especially for the kids that were there because there were a lot.
What do you
So,
think if like okay, like so say that you knew that this was going to happen in the future. You like were sent back into the past, and you could only help like a handful of families like by giving them advice. What advice would you have given them to help them prepare for the aftermath? Like, for
mm.
example, have a tent, have a 72-hour kit, or like what kind of like practical, well,
Yeah,
practical and maybe spiritual advice would you have?
yeah, yeah. That's an interesting question. I would say spiritual advice first. Um, know that God is in charge. Um, know that He will answer your prayers. Um, everyone was kind of in a crappy situation, but I know in my family we employed prayer a lot. We were trying to figure out what to do and kind of how to get out, and we had two options. And we prayed about, which option should we do? Should we try to go to Oahu and stay a few more days in Hawaii, or do we just turn around and go home? And, so I would say preparation spiritually is know that God is in charge and use prayer. Also, really, I think big for me and our family personally was, at about 10 p.m. on that first night when we realized we don't have a place to stay. I turned around to all of my kids sitting in the back seat and I said, listen, everybody is going to be nice. Everyone is going to know that everybody else is tired, and everyone is going to recognize that, we're going to get through this. So I think you have to um, know that God's in charge and then set your attitude.
Yeah.
So that's a spiritual advice I have. Temporal advice. Oh, this one's hard because um of course nobody expected this. And we were in a little bit of a better situation than a lot of people because we had just come from the airport, so we had stuff. We had towels and we had soap and we had shampoo and toothbrushes. But um, the temporal preparation, I would say, is this: for all of those people that donated items to all of the rest of us that didn't have things, they were prepared. There was a lot of food storage that was brought in. There were a lot of cases of water. There was a ton of bedding, a lot of camp cots, a lot of air mattresses, a lot of sleeping bags. That was the majority of the stuff. So prepare yourselves, because you don't know if normally I feel like my family's on the other side of service, like we're helping other people, and this was really one of the first times in a extreme situation that we've been on the opposite side. And
Yeah.
so we couldn't have done much ourselves to prepare for that, but the people around us did, that served us. And that was that would be my other advice: is you prepare yourselves in your home where you are, so that you can either A, use it, or B, give it to somebody else to use.
Yeah. I mean, I guess like I'm trying to play through this scenario myself.
Mhm.
Um, given that there would be time, I guess the best case scenario would be is like if you have an RV or a camper, because then you have a place to stay, but that would be
Mhm.
dependent on if it wasn't damaged or burned or
Right.
whatever.
Right. Yeah.
After that, it's probably a good idea to have a tent or something like that as a temporary shelter. Because
Oh
again, I don't
yeah.
know what I don't even know what you do like after after the few days go by. Then what? Like there's still nowhere to
Right.
go,
Yeah,
unless you have
and
family, I guess.
for sure. And that's actually the situation that Maui's in now. Is I'm sure you've heard, and your listeners have heard of some of the looting and people being held up at gunpoint and robbed.
No, I haven't
I
heard about that. Oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah, the situation is more dire now because so much time has passed. So when we were there, it was shocking, but everyone was kind of coming together. I still think most of the people there are coming together. I think that it's easy for us to judge situations like that and think, "Oh, why can't people just, like, be nice and calm?" We don't know the dire circumstances that some of these people are in, and the things that I understand are, this is why emergency preparedness is important. The things that I understand are in dire circumstances are certain medicines and treatments that they just don't produce or have on the island, and and things for infants like formula and diapers. So it's kind of the two vulnerable groups: the elderly and the young. I think that they're okay on water, and I think that they're okay on food, but it's some of those additional items that are becoming a little bit more scarce. And honestly, like, where's the government? But that's a whole different topic. Yeah, I think food storage, but not just food storage, your emergency preparedness. It's like, think about COVID in 2020. We were one of the families that ran out of toilet paper because I didn't have an extra Costco case of toilet paper in my basement.
Yeah, us
Now
too.
I always have an extra, you know, package of toilet paper or two in the basement. So making sure that, I think 72-hour kits are vital. If I had been a resident there and we were able to grab a 72-hour kit that had a change of clothes, a change of underwear, a toothbrush, a bar of soap, a couple of bottles of water, a couple of MREs, we would have been feeling a little bit more confident than we were feeling with really nothing.
Yeah.
So,
I'm all about
yeah,
MREs because I was in the army, and
yeah,
they're not like always the best. Sometimes they're actually kind of good, but like it's just nice that they
yeah,
stay good for so long, and
yeah,
it's a whole meal. It's all
right,
prepared.
right,
All
right.
you need to do is like get water. Did you guys have a chance to, like, showers? Like, because you said that you had like your soap. Was there somewhere there that you could like
Oh,
shower?
yeah. That was so crazy. We did hear that there were some, volunteers that were driving people up and back to their houses all day long to get them showers. We could have gone over to the high school, but I mentioned to you before that it just did not feel like a safe place. And especially I have, teenagers, I have girls. I
Yeah.
just didn't want to open the kids up to being vulnerable that way. We did also hear that the YWCA was opening its doors for people to just come in and use the bathrooms and showers. So we went there. One thing that we actually did prepare on, that I think my kids were kind of complaining, that I made them all take their own beach towel. And we just did the little Turkish cotton towels. In fact, those would be great things to put in a 72-hour kit because they roll down really nice and tight. And I said, everyone's going to pack their own because I don't want to put them all in my suitcase. And they were kind of complaining. I was making them take beach towels. They said, the hotel will have some that we can take. When we got to the YWCA to take showers, they were like, yeah, you guys can totally shower, but we don't have any towels. And I was like, I have towels. So,
That's great.
yeah,
Nothing puts me in a
was,
worse mood than when I haven't had a chance to shower. Like I can deal with it. I had to deal with it in the Army, but like it's already a bad situation on top of that. I'm surprised
yeah.
that people were driving people to their houses to shower. That's
Oh,
really
yeah.
generous because it's
Yeah.
kind of like an unnecessary thing, but that was a really kind thing for them to do.
No, there were some of these volunteers were just absolutely incredible. Just working 20 hours a day to make sure that we were taken care of. It was incredible.
That's great. Well,
Yeah.
we're coming to the end of our time here, and I think that's pretty good. You gave us a good flavor of what happened. And so everybody, even though it's not like frontline news right now, people are still dealing with this. So
Yeah.
pray for them, and you yourself be sure that you're ready, just in any way that you can. Um, be ready to be homeless because you never know what is going to happen to you.
You
Like you
don't
think that
know.
the people in Lahaina thought that their town was going to be burned by a wildfire.
No.
So it's a crazy world, especially the closer we get to the second coming. Anything could happen. So just
Absolutely.
everybody be ready.
Be
Um,
ready.
but anyway, thank you so much, Holly, for coming on. And I'm glad that you
Yeah.
guys made it safe and that I'm glad that you had that experience too, because I know all of us, we look back on our life and the hard things that we went through, and it's like we wouldn't care to go through it again, but we wouldn't give up that experience. It's something that
Right.
makes us better in the long run.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, Jared. I really appreciate it.
no problem. And then the pictures that Holly mentioned, I'll put that on the community tab if you guys want to see that. So I'll do that just as soon as I'll do it after I publish this video, and then you can hop over there and check out those pictures. So all right, again, thank you, Holly. You guys, if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.